Hello dear subscribers and watchers, what's up? This is me, Said Al Yahya from Computer Science for Self-Taught. As usual, I'm going to talk about the storage for now. We're gonna see how we can store files in the Android's internal storage, or you can say the primary memory of your phone. In this video, I'm going to cover about internal storage and so on and so forth. Internal storage is something inside your phone. If I show you by an illustration, it will be so easy for you to grasp the concept of internal storage. So this is your phone storage. If you imagine when you install an app, that app occupies the required storage for itself, which is called internal storage. And the remaining part of that storage will be called external. Although some phones may have a memory slot to it, which is an sticker like that, will also be an external storage for this. So this storage is called primary storage and this storage is called external storage. Whenever you create a file and you store that file inside the internal storage of your phone, that file is private and it is not accessible by other apps, and other users cannot use it and cannot see it. And whenever you uninstall the app, all the files stored inside the internal storage of your app will be destroyed and uninstalled. And if you store your files in the external memory of your phone or external SD card, whenever you uninstall the app, your files are still in here, and whenever you install the app again, still you can access to your previous data which your app has created. So this is the concept of the primary storage. So this is called the primary storage and this is called the secondary storage of your phone. Your phone has two storage. One is internal storage, which your app uses for storing its files, and another is external, which if you put your files in this area, this can be a public area for your app. So internal storage, as I've told you before, it allows you to read and write to files that are associated with each application's internal memory, and these files can be only accessed by the application and it cannot be accessed by other applications or users, because you store your file in the internal storage of your phone, which is private to other apps. When the application is uninstalled, those files are automatically removed as well. Okay? Your app's internal storage directory is specified by your app package name in a specified location of the Android file system, and other apps and users cannot browse your internal directories and do not have read and write access unless you explicitly set the files to be readable or writable. You can set the mode to readable and writable by using the mode readable and writable. If you use mode private for your files and internal storage, they are never accessible to other apps. Internal storage can use it when you want to make sure that neither the user nor the apps can access your files. That's the best thing about the internal storage, but you must also know that the disadvantage of this internal storage is that if you uninstall your app, all the files will be removed. So basically, if you want to create a file and you want to store data to that file, you need to call the method of open file output. This method allows you to create a file, and you can also set the accessibility of this file by using the mode. First, it requires two parameters. The first parameter is your file name, and the second is the mode that you give it to the file, which can be accessible to the other apps or not. When you use the open file output method, it returns an object of file output stream. With this method, you can write to the file in the form of a stream. In the form of a stream, I mean in the form of bytes 0, 1 into the file. And whenever you want to get the data from your files, you need to call the method open file input, which gives you an object of file input stream, and by using that object you can read your data in the form of byte from the storage, I mean from your file which you have already stored your data in it. But it is your responsibility to convert those bytes into characters. So for example, internal storage, this is my file name, my text.txt, and I want to store this data. This data may be the data that is generated by your app or some files which you have downloaded from the internet. Okay, as of now I'm storing into my text.txt. Let's see how we can do this. Well, basically you can store images, other files, PDF files inside your file my text.txt. So the first one is you can use the open file output, which requires two parameters, as I've told you before, file name and mode private. Here I've given my file name my text.txt, and the mode private, it means only this app will be able to read and write from this file. Other apps are not allowed. So basically, as I've told you, that file output stream give you a reference to the stream writer, which to write data in the form of bytes. So that's why I use in here string.getByte, which get the data and converts them into bytes, and you must store them inside an array of bytes. and then you pass this object inside the file output stream.write. The data will be written in the form of zeros and ones inside your file. And after that, make sure that you close your file. So why we need to close our file? Because input stream and output stream are just like tap connected between your house and tank. So if you keep the tap open, you're gonna waste water. In other words, if you keep the file output stream or the file input stream open, you're gonna waste resources on your device. So you're gonna make sure that you close it. Work this out inside Android Studio, how we can save the data inside the internal storage. So my idea is, whenever I provide my username and password inside these edit text boxes, and whenever I click the save box, it's going to get these data and save them inside the internal storage by using file output stream. And whenever I click on the go to button, it takes me to another activity, which is this one. And whenever I click the load button, it's going to get the data from the file and show them in here. And whenever I click on the previews, it's going to take me back to this activity. So I'm going to main activity, and in here I have initialized those buttons btn save and btn go to. But now I'm going to set their listeners btn save dot set on click listener. Either you can new on click listener, but I do not prefer this way, although you can register your btns to listener in this way. But I'm going to pass the object of listener to these buttons, view dot on click listener, listener equals to new view dot on click listener. Okay, and make sure that you provide a semicolon in here. Implement the meter. I'm going to use the switch to distinguish which button is clicked. v.get id, get me the id of the button which is clicked, and now I'm going to use that r.id.save button was clicked. So take me to this method, which is this one. Okay, so I'm going to call that method and break it. And if the case was btn go to, so take me to next activity, which is this one. Okay, to activity B, I call this method go to method, and I'm going to break it. That's it. Now I'm going to register those buttons to the listener. We have a button save and button go to. I'm going to pass the object of listener which I've created in the above. Whenever I click on the save button, it's going to get those data from these edit text boxes and store them in a file. So let's see to do this. Inside the save file, we are going to say that data saved successfully. First, we need to call the open file output, and in here you need to provide the name of your file. I'm going to name my file cs50.txt, and make sure that you set a mode for it. I'm choosing mode private because only this app will be allowed to read and write to this file. Store the object which returned from the open file output. I'm going to store this to file output stream FOX. Okay, and in here there may be a chances that this file may not get created by your app there. So in that case there may arise an exception, and I'm going to handle it. Okay, if there was an exception in here, it's going to come to catch block and execute this line of code. I must put the file in here and set it to null. Okay, FOS. So to write the data, use the FOS file dot write. As you can see, it stores data in the form of byte, and you can also specify offset and length, and you can also write it. So in here I will get the data from my edit name and edit password. Okay, so I'm going to write fos.write edit name dot get text dot toString. Okay, and in here I'm going to convert those text strings into byte. I call the get byte, and in here it arises an error because there may be an input output exception. There may be a chances that your phone restarts or your phone closes. So again I'm going to add it to the catch block. Okay, if there was an exception in here, it jumps to this catch block and execute this line of code, and you can toss a message to the user. I do not want to do that, so again I'm going to get the password fos.write password.getText.toString.getByte. But if you know that whenever I write my username like Yahya and provide a password like this, so what it's going to do, it's going to write them like this. So again, I want to separate them. In the next example or in the next tutorial, we will see how to get the data. So now I want to provide a space in here. Before convert them to byte, I'm going to call a method, or I'm going to concatenate to and a space like, okay, but I put them inside an inner bracket, so I want to make sure that error goes away. So whenever I store my data inside the file, there will be written like Yahya, and I provide the space in here like this, which is this one, and then it writes my path. So again, I need to close my file. Make sure that you call the fos.flash method, because it's going to flashes all the data which are stored inside the buffer. Okay, before the closing the file, I wanted to flash all data from the buffer and store them inside the file, and after that you need to call the close method to close the file. And if you do not close the file, as I've told you before, you're gonna waste resources. So I do not write fos.close in here. There may be a chances that this line of code may arise an exception and part of code will not get executed. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to add an extra statement in here. Finally is a statement which always executes. It is like, hey, I don't care if you have an exception or not, but I'm gonna run anyway. So in here, I'm going to close it, fos.close, and make sure that you add to an exception. So before the closing, make sure that your file is initialized. Otherwise, if you close the uninitialized file or null file, your app may crash. So I'm going to check to run if statement. If fos was not null, so execute this part of code, and make sure that you do this. Okay, when the data saves successfully, let's run and see the output with your own eyes. So that is, I'm going to provide my name and password 123. Okay, when I click on the save button, it's going to get these data and convert them into bytes and store them in a file. Click save. Data saved successfully. So again, if you want to know where your data is saved, I'm going to call a method. I'm going to create in here a string. I do not use a string. Okay, I choose file. If, so I'm going to import this one. If equals to get files directory. Okay, in here get files directory gives you the exact location where your file is stored, although you can also call .get absolute, and it gives you the location of your file where your files is stored. A statement cut it from here, and I'm going to write down in here, I'm going to say that data saved successfully to f, okay, dot twist. And I also do something like this. What was my file name? cs50.txt, cs50.txt. So again, I rerun the app, and let's see if it shows me the exact location where my file is stored inside the internal storage. So I provide a redundant data in here. When I click the save, it's going to toss a message in here that your file is saved in this directory. You can see that the location. If I click it back, it says data saved successfully to data user com.example as har file handling files as the name of cs50.txt. So in the meantime, if you guys do like what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and let us know your thoughts in the comment boxes below this video, and don't forget to share our videos with your friends and support us in any way you can. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have fun learning.